Hey everyone, welcome to another new episode of GCS Connect Leaders Series. And we've got Manuel Schuller with us from My DevOps Expert. He's a consultant and works within funnily enough, the DevOps space. And he's talking to us from Rome. So it's great to have our international colleagues on board. Really interesting chat around primarily DevOps, which we explain and clarify some of the elements on it. Talk about the history of it, what it's about now, and what it might be in the future. I think for anyone that's interested in how to develop in this and listen to someone that's really embedded within the technology and how this technology is developing, this is the podcast for you. Thank you. Hi, Manuel. How are you?
I'm fine, David. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing very well today. Yes, fantastic. We've had a little bit of technical issues, my sending you the wrong link and all that sort of thing. So I'll get there, but we're here finally. So it's exciting. And I've been talking to you with pride. I've got a brand new microphone that I'm using. So hopefully for our many listeners out there, they can hear me even more loudly and clearly than ever. So excited for this. So we're talking to Manuel Schuller today. He is an industry expert. I'm going to call him an evangelist in the world of DevOps and DevSecOps for mydevopsexpert.io. Someone that we've been talking to over the last few months, and we felt would be a great person to kind of come on to the chat and find out a little bit more about his journey as a leader, but also the world of DevOps and how that links into the innovative ways that software is moving forward and helping us build our world. So, Manuel, it's nice to have you here. Maybe as we always start, just give us a bit of background about your journey, about your journey into technology, and how you come to be now where you are within the technology world.
Absolutely. So thank you, David, for the introduction. So as you said, I've been working for a long time in the industry. I've been working for several vendors. Before working for vendors, I spent about 10 years in the industry, in the software for the industry, so industrial software, as we used to call it. And I was, we're talking about more than 25 years ago, and I was in touch with something which was quite revolutionary in Europe, which was the DoD, Department of Defense norms that were applied to a lot of software development. And here I discovered the need of driving the quality, thinking about how a software you develop in your company has to be compliant, has to follow a certain number of norms. And this is where I started to touch what we will call several years after DevOps. So I joined the vendors world about 25 years ago, and so I've been working for several vendors, both on the development side, on operation side. To name a few, Serena Software, HP. And by the way, now these two have converged into Micro Focus, recently acquired by OpenText. I've been working for very small companies, also like Opsware, like Electric Cloud. And Electric Cloud was also, this is a game of acquisitions acquired by CloudBees, and where I was heading the all the pre-sales and architecture activities. And recently, I've been working for Wipro on the banking project, where we had the opportunity to implement a lot of good stuff in terms of, very, very modern technologies, Kubernetes, GitOps, compliance, all that kind of stuff. So this is roughly my story.
Fantastic. And when you go back to, you mentioned, the DoD and the defense, the protocols and that sort of thing, which you felt kind of gave rise to what we know as DevOps now. I guess my first question is, because there's quite a lot of people that listen to this who are not technical. We have a number of listeners, but a lot of them listen to the more for the leadership side and people's journeys and people. But I think it's important for you, particularly, Manuel, just to give us a layperson's definition, and this is a layperson, including myself. What is DevOps? So, and I'm also going to ask you about DevSecOps, which I know is something you're also kind of interested in. So, if you were to explain to a person in the street what DevOps was, how would you describe it?
What a question. No, I'm joking, but um, DevOps is. I mean, if you look at the history of technology, and especially software technology, you had two worlds. The one of development, where people are creative. They love programming. They love creating new cool features, and they are working with the yeah, really the creative part in mind. And the other side of we used to call that the wall, sometimes the wall of confusion. But the other side of the wall is the operation, is how to make sure that the software will be used in good conditions by the final users, by the consumers. Okay, DevOps DevOps is more a story rather than a word and a discipline or a technology. DevOps is really how can we take advantage of all the creativity of the development while having pieces of software that are really useful and easily usable by the final consumers. This is where DevOps come in mind. So it covers the quality of the software, it covers the security of the software, DevSecOps. So from my point of view, and we are a number of other evangelists sharing that same point of view, DevSecOps is just an extension of DevOps. It's not something different. Uh, um, we could have called Dev Quality Ops, of SecOps, or Dev Architecture Ops, or it's all these characteristics of the software that will put together the creativity and the ease of use for the final users.
And when my next question was going to be around when you first started to kind of work in the industry and you saw the blossoming, you foresaw, you were able to work in areas where you could see this coming. Um, what were were the challenges at that point technological? Because obviously, I'm assuming that it's more difficult to collaborate and kind of work without this wall if you can work in more in cloud focused way using kind of remote working, whereas maybe in the old days you had to be kind of sat next to a desk to someone. Was it practical and logistical, or was it actually pushed back because people don't want to see change, right? People like things the way they are. Or was it a combination of all three as you saw those changes happening?
It's some kind. I mean, it's always a combination. But when you think about the three pillars of software development, of technology, so you have the people, you have the processes, and you have the tools or the technology. And very honestly, implementing DevOps there is a lot of more work, and most of the time more interesting work in the people side and in the process side rather than in technology. Technology we've seen over the last roughly 15 years, roughly, uh, that technology is following. Technology is there. There's always something new, something interesting. I've been talking about Kubernetes and GitOps we can explain a little bit more after that. But these are trends on the technology that are useful for implementing DevOps. But the heart of DevOps is really the people, the way the people work, and the processes that you want to implement. So how to implement DevOps, thanks to the people who have understood the what are the benefits of DevOps. I didn't talk about that in my introduction, but I also work as an ambassador for two very interesting groups. The first one is the DevOps Institute, and the second one is the Continuous Delivery Foundation. And the DevOps Institute we use when we communicate in the name of the DevOps Institute, we used to have in the signature of the email, "Stay human." DevOps is first of all a question of humans, so a question of people. So make understand the benefits of DevOps. I prefer when I talk to a company, I prefer talking about the tools at the very end, or doing DevOps with no tools. It's also possible. DevOps is a principle. It's not a tool. It's not based on anything. There's a lot of principles that are easier to implement with a tool, but it's not a question of tools. Absolutely.
And it's so integrated now. So when we first spoke about it, we were talking about the early 2000s, right? And then late 90s. And now, as a technology recruiter, I know that cloud, DevOps, and all the world around it is so integral to the way people develop, right? So I assume you're not going into and evangelizing now with people that need to be persuaded, or are you? Are there still kind of holdouts where there's no, that doesn't work, it won't work for us, etc.,
You
etc.?
you would be surprised. I mean, you have an interesting vision because you are a technology recruiter, but you would be surprised to see how late some companies are on understanding the benefits of DevOps and implementing DevOps. I've been working or collaborating with several system integrators, and what I see currently within system integrators is that they create a small team of experts, of DevOps experts, or technology experts, or cloud experts, digital transformation experts, and these small teams within big corporations like Wipro, like Capgemini, like all those big GSIs, those small teams go and address major customers most of the time. But if you talk to the main part of the customers, they are not major in DevOps. Some of them do not even understand what it means, or they did not get yet the benefits of doing DevOps. You have to show them. You have to demonstrate. You have to
And how
calculate.
do you then? How I mean, this is it's interesting because then how do you actually? How do you show that? Is that what KPIs is that based on? Is that based on the speed of development, the security, like the security, the quality? So are there actual things that you can say, right? By doing this, I can prove that this has been done better, or is it in the kind of eyes of the beholder? I'm assuming there is ways that you can prove it, right?
So yeah, no, absolutely. The very first KPIs, I mean, the very first measurements are the errors that are made with automation or without automation. It looks obvious. I mean, to you, to me, and to most of the people listening to us, but it's not obvious for everyone. There's still and we are in 2024, at the very end of 2024, we still have some groups in big companies that do not want to automate because automation is still leaving some knowledge go. I leave my knowledge go. Okay, so we are getting out of this, but much more slowly than I could have thought 20 years ago.
Mm.
Yet
Yeah.
20 years ago, we were saying roughly the same thing. Okay, people is keeping the information. It's difficult when you talk about automation because they will leave their knowledge go. But we still have that kind of configuration in some companies. So no, I don't want to be pessimistic in
No,
that
no, no. I think
in that
it
conversation. Um,
it flips onto the other side, I guess, when you talk about automation. Then as we've been speaking a lot about in recent episodes, like AI, how that may actually help. So I guess, like you as an evangelist, if an AI makes up like programs for itself, will it program in a DevOps way? Will it just go? Will it go fully DevOps if it has the intelligence to do it, or is it?
yeah, it could be, yes, yeah.
Sure.
These are, by the way, topics on which we are remotely thinking, but we are already thinking about that within
Yeah.
those corporations, DevOps Institute and CD Foundation, and we're thinking, what about what will be the impact of AI, and what barriers do we
Mm.
have to build to make sure that AI is very useful, is really useful, because the
Yeah,
problem,
useful and tamed, I guess, as well, isn't it? So the power of it and that sort of thing. So
Mm,
the reason I mention that is because when people start talking about automation, then people like myself always think about AI, because AI is kind of linked to that in terms of
yeah,
who
mm,
decides on how the automation is running. So now when you go into organizations that have embraced DevOps, and as a leader, as an evangelist, first off, I mean, again, for people that don't really know the technological world. I mean, obviously,
mhm,
people know what the word evangelist means, right? So the word evangelist, in a religious
it's
sense, is kind of
yeah,
like I'm spreading the word and making you have faith. So I guess that's kind of what you're doing in a technological way.
yeah,
But how do you, again, if people are interested, how do I become an evangelist? Like
mm,
how have you got yourself into this position where you feel and people feel like this guy is someone that we look to as an industry expert?
mm.
How do you get there, and how do you deal with that? Because it's quite a pressurized position to be in, I guess.
Yes, it is indeed. What I used to say, what I used to use, okay,
Mm,
because you have to tell a story to
mm,
make people understand, people who are not necessarily in the technology, make them understand what you mean, and the benefits that you can demonstrate, you could demonstrate. Necessarily, in my point of view, go through a nice story. If you are able to tell a nice story, then they will understand. And if that story is put in a context which is familiar, it's even better. So I try to do that, and what I'm using is a first introduction, which everybody says, "Oh no, once more." That introduction is based on software is eating the world. Okay, so software is eating the world is something that has been said, I think, in a conversation in a conference, I don't remember, by a guy called Mark Andreessen. Mark Andreessen has had created Netscape long time ago, and so he sold Netscape. He made a lot of money. He went probably some months in sailing around nice places, and at the end of the day, he came back in the market because he's passionate of technology. So he created several companies. One of them I was in a long time ago. But software is eating the world is really if you do not have a proper way to manage your software, then your company will be out of your business very quickly. Okay, so this is a first stuff. Software is really eating the world. The second thing related to something that everybody knows, in an audience, everybody uses either Facebook, so you cover 90% of the attendance, or Netflix. Netflix and Facebook you cover 100% of the attendance. And the characteristics of Facebook or Netflix is that it's a uninterrupted software service. I mean, Facebook it's just a website, and Netflix it's a TV service. So it's just software. You don't have anything. You don't receive anything at home by delivery or whatever. And the characteristics of those services over the last years, from the beginning where they existed until now, is that you never ever any interruption of the service. It doesn't exist anymore. Maybe your bank does it, but Netflix or Facebook does not. You have some new features every time, nearly every day. And when you go to your neighbors watching TV, you sometimes discover that your neighbor either has something new that you don't have, or does not have something that you had yesterday when you were looking at Netflix. Okay, and all those characteristics that are not technological at all are here thanks to DevOps.
Yes, because of the human input into pushing these things forward and implementing them with almost I see it as seamless, right? But that's what continuous development is. It's just happening.
Yeah, it's just happening. I mean, you
Mm.
don't realize that it's happening.
And is that really, really hard? Like, I always think when people explain it to me and say, right, okay, so Netflix keeps updating itself and it keeps running and it keeps running and things happen and you're watching this and it's running all sorts of different apps and all that sort of thing. And then you think to yourself, my God, that must be tough, difficult. Is it really
It's
hard? But
so
obviously, you
not
would probably
well.
say it would be, but it strikes me as being incredibly difficult to. I mean, like you said, how often does Amazon go down? How often does Netflix go down? I think I know WhatsApp, maybe, not to kind of call it out. Sometimes I think WhatsApp maybe had one outage about that one outage in the last year where WhatsApp stopped working and everybody was on iMessage saying, "What the hell's going on? WhatsApp stopped working." It was crazy. People couldn't believe it, could they?
Yeah. And I remember also there was something, there was an interruption on Amazon some time ago, but it was related to a data center. It
Right.
was not related to the
Not
software.
DevOps.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
really.
Hmm.
It was related either to the communication, the
Hmm.
network, or it was related to the hardware. It was not
Right.
related to the software.
Sure.
Um,
Which is the
so
same as the
basically,
CrowdStrike thing, which is Microsoft, obviously, and the cloud
yeah,
and Azure. But
mm,
that was the CrowdStrike problem. That
yeah,
was that was a security guy, wasn't it? Pressing the
yeah.
wrong button. We've
Mm.
talked about this before. That must have been one of the worst ever business mistakes. But that again, not necessarily DevOps. So it must be incredibly hard, and there must be some. I guess it's a team thing to kind of keep
Yes.
this going all the time. Is it a 24/7 operation? People are just all the time.
No, it's not. Thanks to the technology. This
Right.
is
Okay.
at that point that the technology comes into the picture.
Sure.
It's not difficult because when you think about a continuous delivery process,
Mm.
it's not difficult. Okay, you have to work it out a little bit, but implementing continuous delivery in the idea is not very difficult.
No.
And once you have the process, and you have good tools to implement that process, then it's not very difficult to do. It's not very hard to do.
Yeah.
And let me add something that is quite important. The return on investment is also something that is, I was about to say, very fast. I mean, it's quite fast.
Mm.
I remember that we made some deep analysis of return on investment on some tools that implement release automation. Release automation is a part, a quite mandatory part of the continuous delivery process. And
Well,
the return on investment of such tools was about 5 months. I mean, for a big company, 5 months is tomorrow morning. Um, so it's really worth doing it, and it's not that difficult. It can be long to educate people.
sure.
It can be tricky to have the solution adopted. This is, I mean, something that I didn't name the adoption part of such processes, but it's also so important. I have number of examples where some companies were trying to implement very interesting processes for continuous delivery,
Mm.
very oriented on the future, on the technology, and they completely missed the adoption part. And this is
Yeah.
a tragedy, because you've been working for quite a long time on defining your processes, making them really um, tailored to
Mm.
what the company is doing, and you miss the adoption. So the people, I mean, developers, people from operation, do not want those processes because they were not involved in the definition at the end of the day. So it's one
Yeah.
of the common mistakes that is done. Uh, Everybody should be involved, from development to operations. All the specialist groups like security, compliance, auditors. I mean, all the people who contribute to the process and who can make a benefit from that process should be involved.
Because I guess, particularly in this day and age when cyber and regulations, things like the Cyber Resilience Act are coming in, compliance now must be, particularly when you have good processes that maybe weren't in the past thinking about, security or compliance so much. So how have you managed, and I know this is something you're particularly kind of keen on talking about at the moment, how have you managed to bring that into the process, to bring that into the story? Because that strikes me as something that people will be, oh God, now I've got to think about this now.
So, the brief introduction before my answer. This is something we will have to bring into the picture, because, as you mentioned, the Cyber Resilience Act has been published last month. So it's been written 2 years ago. 3 years ago was the equivalent in the US, with the executive order from President Biden. And
Do you think they'll still have
roughly,
it after Donald Trump, or it'll be just laid to do whatever you want?
uh, it 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 should remain. It
It
should
won't. It won't
remain.
interest him. He'll be worried about other things. Yeah.
So the Cyber Resilience Act defines, in terms of software, that every software will need a bill of material. So what is basically a bill of material? This is something which is not new.
Mm.
Absolutely, this is something which was in the universities in the 80s, 90s, as part of how to characterize a software. Um, it's basically the list of all the PCs, all the parts
Mm.
that were used to build the software. So think about a car. The bill of material is the list of all the pieces you need to build the car. The software is exactly the same. It's the software bill of materials. So all the libraries, all the open source pieces that you have used to generate your software, the security mechanisms that you used to make sure that your software is secure,
Sure.
the quality test, and I mean everything that you've been using during the development of the software until its delivery.
Mm.
And this software bill of material will be mandatory. So now it's published and it will be applied at the latest mid 2026. So every software that is, for example, on the marketplace will have his bill of material as a mandatory piece. So I believe that all the marketplaces will make mandatory to upload the bill of material.
Mm.
The Cyber Resilience Act also defines how to verify a bill of material. So there are several formats for the bill of material. Everything is planned, is defined already, and any marketplace will be able to verify, so to call a service to verify the bill of material, and only if the bill of material is correct, whatever it means, the software will be published on that marketplace. So every software that is sold on the market, so all the vendors obviously are involved in that. So any software will need a bill of material. So this is also an opportunity for us doing some evangelism work to say, when you do a pipeline, a delivery pipeline, which is basically what the way we call the process that brings to the delivery of your software. When you define your delivery pipeline, it's easy, really, to include building the bill of material while you are going towards the delivery of the software. So from the development until your delivery, it's quite easy today to include the constitution of that bill of material, and it's I wouldn't say it's no cost, but cost can be very reduced if you use the right moments in your delivery cycle. It can be quite easy to implement, and
And
I
and
wish.
and then if I'm thinking about continuous development, right? But obviously then you're constantly changing, you're changing the code and you're updating different elements of the code and maybe adding in new structures, pieces of software, tools, etc., then I'm assuming that bill of materials is quite a live document, right? You know, it can be every time you're making a change, you need to change the bill of materials, and then you need to historically say these versions have got this bill of materials, but actually this version is this bill of materials.
You get it, absolutely. Each
Again, this
release of
sounds
the
very
software.
hard, Manuel. It sounds very hard. It sounds like some
No,
very intelligent people that need to be doing this. I guess you can
no,
automate this,
because
but it sounds incredibly hard.
think, David, think about it that way. When you change a piece of code in your software because you want to build a new feature, okay, you will change some code. Um, and at the end of the day, through some builds and some links, some tests, or whatever it happens, it will end up in something that is deliverable, okay, that you can push to a production platform. When you do that, a lot of things will happen to the software. The version control that you mentioned. After that, we will build something. If we think about modern platforms, we will build a container. We will upload the container in a container registry. and so on and so on. We will scan the container to make sure that the security is okay. As far as we know, as far as state of the art tells us, the security of the container is okay, and so on. So a lot of things are happening. If I just add a, 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 a piece of control here saying, do a registration of all the changes I've done and put that in a file or a repository called the bill of material, then I, I've
And the
done it.
work is done. You
Yeah.
know, this is
Well,
why you're an evangelist, Manuel. It makes it sound so easy, you know.
yeah.
And when you're doing your speaking, you know, and when you're out there evangelizing,
Yeah.
versus maybe when you're within a working environment, like you're a leader and within one of the SIs and stuff that you're working with,
Mhm.
which do you prefer doing? Or do you get different enjoyment from different types of things?
It depends. It depends on the role. I sometimes have a very um, defined small amount of time role of several hours, let's say, just to make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about, and some kind of sell the benefits of DevOps or continuous delivery or whatever I'm talking about. Um, so in those cases, yes, what I enjoy is try to have an immediate feedback on. So am I clear on the concepts that I'm defining right now? Does it ring a bell to you? Does it make sense to you? Does it ring a bell in a situation that you know that you have already met, and that may be something that you failed seeing? If you had that information at that time, if you knew what DevOps, if you knew better what DevOps was, would do you think you would have done something better in your experience? These are the very short term. Longer term, so leading a project, for example, what I'm interested in also is make sure that the team working on that project, they all get the big picture of what we're doing. Okay. Um, let me take an example quite recent. I've been working with a team of 10 or 15 very young engineers, very young, 28, 30 years old. And it was very interesting because they had a very recent degree where they had been talking about containers, Kubernetes, and all those things that for them is
So you're preaching to the converted at this point, right? To continue on our
yes,
evangelism
yes,
vibe.
but it's very important. What I found missing is all the history, what was before,
Right. Okay.
because
Yeah.
they are convinced. I mean, for them, DevOps is obvious.
Mm. Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
obvious, but why is it obvious? Because they learned that at the university. Do they know what was before, and what benefits, what first benefits DevOps was bringing? And I discovered that most of them didn't know. So um, it was very interesting to bring them into uh, older stuff. So to make some comparisons with here are the benefits of DevOps that are obvious to you, but here is what was before and what was not
I
working
think it's
very
quite
well.
interesting that, you know, people in technology, because it's so future facing,
It is.
they don't do very well with history, do they? You don't look back a lot. I was having a conversation the other day, and this is a recruitment context, but when I started, about the fax machine, right? So the
Yeah.
email has been like all these things have happened,
Mm.
but when I started, we used to have to, for those that don't know, is put a piece of paper and type a number and then it comes out the other side, right? We used to have to
Hmm.
fax people
Yeah.
CVs, resumes, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Emmanuel? I don't know when you
I
were
do,
hiring,
absolutely.
you receive a fax. And
Absolutely
then people are like,
receiving. Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
like what, I just
Mm.
can't believe that like these machines existed, and that must have been so hard. I was like, yeah, that fax machines probably were the worst invention of all time. But technology never really looks back, does it? It sometimes repeats itself, but it never
Mm.
really looks back like fashion would, or culture, or politics, or history itself. It
Mm.
doesn't look back. It constantly looks forward, which I guess is what you're saying. Like people can't really might even make the same mistakes again in their technology because
Yeah.
they're not
Mm.
learning from the mistakes of the past, right?
Yeah. This is, I mean, this is exactly, it would have been my answers. Uh, if you don't look back to history, you don't learn from the past. So you can talk about benefits. You can be very knowledgeable on digital transformation, on cloud, on Kubernetes, on automation, GitOps, and things like this. But if you can't compare to what was before, and you don't know the different stories that brought to that state of the art today, then you will probably repeat the same mistakes. A little bit, the flavor will be different, but the idea of the mistake will be the same. You don't talk to each other. You are not organized well. You don't involve people. I mean, and you see, when I say that, we're talking about people, not technology.
Yeah,
But
technology, like you said, technology will happen.
yeah,
People are the ones that
yeah,
have
yeah.
to make it happen correctly, and then that's
But
really
that
really
that
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that vision of history. And when I do, I mean, I did recently a presentation on the compliance and the Cyber Resilience Act, and how is it important, and how some technical recipes to implement compliance in a CD pipeline. But when I look back at my presentation, half of the presentation on 40 minutes, so 20 minutes, were on the history. Why do we need to implement that way? Why are we here now? What are we looking after? Knowing what the past was. And it's really really important, and it's sometimes, you're absolutely right, missing when you when you hear people talk about the technology without looking back. um some kind of strange.
Exactly. So, just to kind of wrap it up, obviously we just talked about history there, but let's think about the future a little bit. What 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 changes do you see, or what innovations are you particularly excited about within DevOps and the surrounding world in the next
So
kind of 12-24 months?
within DevOps, what I've seen recently, which we have already told a name in that conversation, but that is growing in terms of adoption, is GitOps. Definitely, GitOps is a principle, and I think it's really meaningful. GitOps is a principle; it's not a tool. There are some, we call that GitOps controllers. Okay, they are here to ease the implementation of GitOps, but GitOps is not a tool; it's just a principle. And I see the rising of the principle. What I used to say when I try to convince a large company, large company are very often afraid of commercial software, but they don't trust open source software because they don't know what it will become. So what I try to tell them is, define your processes. Okay. When you want to use tools for um, putting in practice your processes, make sure at every step, ask you the question, if I unplug that tool, is my process still working? And do I still have all my data? If I do still have all my data somewhere accessible, and my process is still working because it's just a process, then I can use that tool. If the tool, um, um, if I can't do without the tool after starting to implement it, or if I lose some data because the tool is keeping the data and I cannot access it if I unplug the tool, then it's probably not the right tool for you. It's it's quite simple, but I think um, it on the long term it's an interesting approach.
Fantastic, good stuff. And for 2025, obviously, lots of speaking engagements, new opportunities, that sort of thing. Do you think that the world will continue to kind of innovate, and is it going to be a good year for technology?
So the next year will definitely the trend of AI will definitely continue, and I'm very curious on what AI is becoming and will become, all the ethic problems. I mean, topics. Not let's not talk about problems yet, but ethic topics. Um, AI needs regulation. Okay, a lot of corporations are working on the regulations. Um, we what you see at the moment is the use of AI and the progresses of AI are probably going a little bit faster than the regulations themselves. So I hope there will be a significant effort on the regulations so that AI is a wonderful stuff. I mean, I didn't tell you that, but for long time ago in 1988, I believe, I did some kind of PhD in at that time in AI, and it was very very different. But we already had that hope that AI will really um, solve problems, solve annoying problems.
But that's what I was just thinking about, continuous development there, and I think it's a good way to end this conversation, because like you said, it's an evangelism, right? And like you said, it's a story. And what it seems to me is that this way of working has sorted out quite a lot of problems in the software industry. But do you ever look at the wider world and think, well, if only I could get some continuous, like, you're from France, right? And France is going through quite a lot of political, I mean, England as well. But you think, well, if I could get the politics to run in a more continuous development way, like make it more organized, did you think, these principles could be used better in the wider world, not just in technology? In terms of people working together, collaborating, constantly redeveloping things, making it more efficient.
So collaboration is never a bad thing. Definitely, collaboration is a way. When you see, I mean, I don't want to go into political topics,
Yeah, no, not
but
away.
recently between France, Italy, where I spent part of my life, and the UK, there are a number of news where you when you look at the news, you think if the people, I mean, in a big corporation, people on the very top of the hierarchy would probably talk, share, and debate with people actually doing some low level works without low level being a bad thing. But I mean, the different levels of a hierarchy would really talk to each other, sharing the experience. A lot of things would be easier
Easier.
to
Yeah, yeah,
solve.
yeah. Well, let's hope we
Totally.
get things working easier in 2025. That would be very nice because
Yeah,
it
definitely.
hasn't happened thus far in this decade, I think. But Manuel, it's been wonderful to speak to you. Thank you very much. Hopefully, this has been an enjoyable conversation for us, and hopefully for our listeners, this has enlightened them on some, as I've said, quite tricky subjects. But as you are an evangelist in this area, you've definitely enlightened us on this, and I really thank you for that. So
I tried, David. I tried. Thank you very much for the
no
conversation.
problem. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks. Cheers.